Yamada's Extra Lessons, written by Flassoon and read by Eleanor Elizabeth. Summary: Aizawa and Mic hold extra lessons after school, but only for a few students each. Inspired by Twisted Twessa on TikTok. As class is let out for the day, Hizashi smiled, dismissing his class and waiting for his extra lessons students to arrive. He watched as Midoriya, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Tetsu walked into the room. "You wanted to see us, Mike-sensei?" Midoriya looked at the students beside him before looking back at Mike. "That's right, little listeners. Come on in and take a seat. We're waiting on one more, and then we can get started." Kaminari glanced at Mike as he took a seat. "Why exactly are we here, Mike-sensei?" "Don't worry too much, listeners. You guys are here for some extra special lessons. We'll get into the introductions once our final student arrives." Togata grins as he walks into the room. "Hi there, Mike-sensei. Sorry I'm late. I had to drop Tamaki off with Aizawa-sensei." "No worries, Togata. We're waiting to start until you got here. Go ahead and take a seat. Now, I'm sure you four are all wondering why you're here." He grinned and turned to write on the board before moving away so they can see. How to get your quiet/brooding/stubborn boyfriend to take care of themselves. Now, I'll hand out your worksheets for today and... Mike paused, sighing as he set his bag back down after looking through it. "Crud! I left them in Sho's bag when we left this morning. I'll be right back, listeners." He grinned and walked out of the room, going over to Shota's classroom and opening the door just after hearing some yelling from Bakugo. "Hey, Sho. I was just about to start my extra lessons and I realized I left my papers in your bag this morning." Shota nodded and grabbed his bag, quickly grabbing the papers that Mike needed and walking them over. "Here's Ashi. I'll see you after the extra lessons." Mike grinned and kissed Shota's cheek before walking out of the room and heading back to his room. "All right, listeners, go ahead and fill these out for me so I can get a good idea about what we'll need to focus on for each of you in these sessions. While this starts as good general information, pretty soon this will be a good support group for us to help each other figuring stuff out. Sounds good? Then let's get started." "I'm not sure Sho is eating enough. He keeps forgetting to bring lunch, and since we're getting ready for finals, I'm getting a little worried." "Ooh, well that's not good. This may be difficult, but if you can, either pack an extra lunch or just bring some extra food in your lunch to share with him. I know Sho tends to forget to eat some days, so it's a good idea to have some extra food on hand for them." Katz is making me concerned. He hasn't been responding when I'm calling him sometimes. I think his quirk has been messing with his hearing. Izuku nods a bit. "Kachan has slowly been losing his hearing since we were little. The doctor said he'll eventually lose full hearing. He tries to ignore it, though." You know, this is a bit of a tricky situation, listeners. I think this is going to sound a bit underhanded, Kirishima, but with a situation like Bakugo's, I'd recommend you talk to Kaminari or Midoriya about it in front of Shinzo or Todoroki so that it gets back to him. Just outright telling him that you're worried may not end too well. I learned the hard way with Sho, so while I don't recommend this for everything, because you two need to be able to communicate, sometimes, in more serious situations like this, it's good to involve a third party to talk to him and let him know how worried you are. Like I said, do not do this all the time. This is only for extreme cases. Nee keeps giving me a bunch of gifts and affection, and it just feels like too much. I haven't been able to get him anything in return, and I feel bad because I can't afford it, and he's been giving me such nice gifts. Oh, Tetsu. It sounds like Monoma is a bit like Sho, and his love language is gift-giving. He just hasn't learned the restraint that Sho has. Talk to him, and tell him that while you appreciate the gifts, you don't need quite so many. It's important for him to learn when to stop. I mean, when Sho and I first started dating, he'd bring me tea every morning, and he'd try to give me little gifts whenever he could. It took me a little while to realize that that's just how Sho showed his love for me, because he didn't communicate that well. Toshi has been hanging out with some of his friends from 1C, and while I don't mind that, he seems completely oblivious to the fact that one of them keeps trying to flirt with him, even when I'm right there. Toshi hasn't even told them we're dating. I try to keep close to him when he's hanging out with them, but I'm worried he's getting annoyed. That one is going to need a good conversation, Kaminari. You need to make sure you communicate with Shinzo to let him know what you've noticed. Tell him your concerns so he's aware, right? He can't stop something if he's not even aware of what's wrong. Togata, I know you mean well, kiddo, but you know that Amajiki doesn't do as well with the aggressive support. Keep supporting him, but maybe tone it back a bit. After all, he's going to be a great hero in his own right, and so will you. Mike smiled, dismissing his small group before wiping off the whiteboard and walking over to Shoto's classroom. "Hey, Sho, how'd your extra lessons go this week?" "Tell me again why I agreed to do this." "Because we've seen these boys struggling in their relationships, and we know that we can help them because their relationships are similar to ours. And because we needed them separated so we can help them easier." "Fine. Now come on, Sho. Time to head home and get some sleep." Mike smiled as Shota nodded before he started to lead the way out of the classroom, driving the pair home.